Hi everyone, welcome back to Talks in Class. I'm Jenna, and thank you so much for joining me today for another week, another conversation about the olden days, as they say. I hope everybody's had a great week. Over here, I've officially entered my cozy season mindset. I am stocked up on all my fall candles, and I feel like I've officially checked out of that summer mindset and into the cozy season mindset. We've been watching a lot of TV, kind of just laying low, doing a little bit less activity, I guess, and just kind of doing a little bit more lounging instead, which honestly is kind of nice. We've been watching a lot of TV, but we're kind of out of things to watch now. We rewatched Stranger Things season 1 last weekend. It's just so good. Like, I think that first season was so great and so unexpected. It's so fun to rewatch it. We rewatch it probably close to once a year, if not actually once a year. And now we are rewatching American Horror Story Coven, which I love. It's my favorite season of American Horror Story. And I think, if I'm being totally honest, I think it's probably the last season of American Horror Story that I even finished. And that was 10 years ago. So I haven't finished a season in 10 years, but I do love to rewatch Coven. It's great. I love it so much. And I think part of it is because I love New Orleans. It's one of my favorite cities. I've been several times. I used to go, it was easier when I lived in Texas because it was like just right there. But I've been several times, and I took Hubs a few years back because he's really into just haunted things. And I just feel like the whole vibe of New Orleans is right up his alley. It's so historic and just beautiful. I love it. I love everything about it. And the food, I mean, I don't know. The food is my favorite thing when I travel. I don't know if anybody else is like this, but I don't always make a ton of really concrete plans when I travel, but I will always have a long list of places I want to eat or foods I want to try, because that's my favorite part about traveling. So it makes sense that I love New Orleans because the food there is just like unreal. We also recently watched White Lotus season 1 and 2. I know we're very behind. I don't know why we didn't watch it until now, but we really loved it. It was great. I don't know what I expected from it, but it wasn't that. It was different than I expected, but I really did enjoy it. But now I feel like we are out of things to watch other than the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City and Real Housewives of New York City, which I watch alone. My husband is not on board with the Housewives. So send me a recommendation for shows if you have any good ones that we could potentially watch together. So as always, I will start this episode with my what good happened. And this week I'm really excited because I booked 2 trips in October, which is kind of a lot of travel for me to do so close together. I'm kind of a homebody, but I wasn't sure when I was going to fit both of these trips in, and I just decided to go for it and book them both in October because October is a fun month to be in. Not LA, because LA is hot, but I am going to Wisconsin in the beginning of October to see my mom for her birthday, and then I'll see some friends and stuff, and it'll be nice to be in the Midwest during the fall, the early fall. And then towards the end of the month, we're going back east to spend some time in Connecticut with my husband's family and hopefully go into the city for at least, a day. And it'll be actually my first time going back east since we moved to LA. So that'll be so fun. I just can't wait to see everyone, and I can't wait to breathe some fall air. I love not having winter, but I do miss having fall. So it'll be a nice little vacations. So for this week's topic, we are actually tackling something that I've been meaning to talk about for a really long time because it's one of my favorite topics, considering 1, my love for physical media, and 2, my very impressive collection of old photographs. So it makes sense that I would want to discuss perhaps the most important photograph we would all take each and every year, school picture day. Before we get into this week's conversation, I do want to pass along my best tip for anybody who uses my clothing rental service, the Jenna Barclay Style Box, or for anybody who might be interested in trying the service at some point. I don't know if everybody realizes that they can do this, but it is the best hack to maximize your rental options with the Style Box. Use the return notify option in order to get another box of items shipped to you even before you send the first box worth of items back. You do not have to wait until you're actually sending those items back in order to do this. You can actually keep the items as long as you want after you return notify them, but notifying the system that you plan to return them eventually versus buy them will trigger a second box of items to ship right away. So you can have up to 2 boxes of items at home at any given time. After that, once you send back items, then you'll get more. But initially, you can have 2 at a time. So for example, I use the 4 item per box option. So I get my first box with 4 items. I basically just have to decide at that point if I plan to keep any of those items forever. And once I decide if I'm going to keep any of them or if I'm going to send them all back eventually, I just go into the system and I hit return item and follow those prompts. And once I've done that for all 4 of my items, either marked them as return or purchase, then a second box of 4 items will automatically ship to me, which means you can have 2 boxes at a time. So for me, that's 8 items. And just to reiterate, I don't have to send those items back right away just because I've returned Notify them. Actually, this dress is a great example. I rented this a couple months ago, but it's a great summer basic, so I want to hold on to it. I know I'm going to return it eventually, so I marked it return notify, but it's just hanging in my closet for now. And once the summer's over, then I will send it back at that point. So this is a great way to be able to hold on to some pieces for a little while longer, maybe a coat or a basic for a season, a pair of jeans, while still having other options that you can rotate out for variety. If you're interested in trying the Style Box, your first month is always absolutely free. Just head to jennabarclaystylebox.com and click Get Started. Speaking of clothes, what could be more important as a tween or a teenager than picking out the perfect outfit for school picture day? As far as I was concerned, nothing or very few things were more important than that. Even when I was pretty young and I didn't necessarily care what I looked like in my school picture, which is very obvious if you look at some of my school pictures when I was really young, because like some of them I didn't even bother to fix my hair after recess. There was one year, I'm almost positive it was first grade. We literally had our pictures taken right after recess. I don't know who came up with this schedule, but it could not have been planned more poorly. Like, who does this? Maybe with 6th graders who spend their entire recess just standing around on the playground playing MASH and talking with their friends, you could have the pictures after recess. But 1st graders, we still played at recess and we went hard, regardless of if it was school picture day or not. Not to mention our school pictures were always taken really early in the school year, probably mid-September at the latest, I would say. So it was still pretty hot outside. And on this particular picture day, my friend and I had been playing a game at recess that we called Bumper Butts. I don't know how to describe this. On our playground, there were these 2 kind of low parallel bars by the monkey bars, except they were lower to the ground and they were parallel. I'm sure these were intended for some sort of exercises to be performed on them, but we used them to play a game that we called Bumper Butts. So you would sit on each parallel bar, one of you on each parallel bar facing each other, and then you'd hook your knees over the bar and then hold on in between your knees and swing upside down. And you would just kind of swing back and forth so that your butts would hit each other. Kind of like those little toys that had the little plastic balls that would like clack, clack, clack. It was like that, but a human version. We did this all the time. I have no idea where this came from. No clue, but we loved it. We thought this was like a genius thing to do at recess. We also loved flipping upside down on the swings. I don't know if anybody else did this too, but you basically hook your legs around the chains of the swings and then you'd swing upside down, like hang upside down as you would swing. I cut my scalp open once doing that because, as you can imagine, that's not the safest thing to try, and I still have a scar from it on the top of my head. But anyway, on this particular school picture day in probably 1993, my friend and I spent recess swinging upside down on the parallel bars and the swings, and then immediately went inside to have our pictures taken. You guys, not only was I in first grade, I looked awkward. I was missing a couple of my front teeth. My face in the picture is bright pink from playing outside in the heat. It looks like I put really bad blush on with my missing front teeth. And then my hair is so messy. I think I had wood chips in my hair from the playground. in that actual picture. I didn't even try to fix it. I wore a headband, so I took this little rat's nest of hair with a wood chip or two, maybe a leaf, some grass, and I just stuck my little gold headband into it, kind of pushed it back so it would puff up the bangs, and got my picture taken. I wore this really cute little pink skirt dress. I think it was pink plaid, but it was definitely pink. It might have been with a little white t-shirt underneath it. My mom probably sent me off to school that day with such high hopes for this photo. She probably thought, what an adorable little pink plaid outfit. She's got her gold headband, and I brought home probably the worst photo I've ever taken. A photo of me beet red face with wood chips in my hair and no teeth in the front. I actually do remember her being pretty upset about me not even bothering to comb my hair before the photo. I got a pretty good lecture about, I didn't even try to straighten my hair. And she had to send that photo out to everybody in the entire family. She probably had to make sure to tell that story in the family Christmas card that year. Did anybody else grow up with boomer parents who sent out Christmas cards that were basically just like a family gossip newsletter every single year? Because my mom did that. So that story probably made the family Christmas card / newsletter that year. But even back then, when I didn't even bother to comb the grass and wood chips out of my hair, even back then, I always wanted to wear my favorite outfit for school picture day, because obviously this picture was going to represent you for an entire school year. So I needed the outfit to reflect who I was at the time and show off my excellent 90s and 2000s fashion sense. And it's funny knowing this now, like how much thought I put into these outfits, because looking back, some of the outfits I wore in my school pictures, I mean, they really do capture the time. I will say that. In one early elementary picture, maybe second grade, if first grade was the pink plaid, this must have been second, I wore a sunflower patterned dress with like a sunflower vest over it, very on brand for 1994. I don't remember third grade at all. My third grade picture is a complete blank to me. I must have blocked it out, honestly, because third grade is kind of the beginning of my awkward phase. I was just not cute from about third to seventh grade. It got really bad around sixth grade, but third grade's when it started. It was just not good. I had glasses, I had stringy, long brown hair. I was just kind of like lanky and generally awkward. I think I might have told this story before, but I remember a long time ago, probably third grade, a kid told me that I looked like Gretchen from the cartoon show Recess. And they absolutely meant this as an insult. And it was. This was not a compliment. But I have to say, that's a very accurate description of what I looked like in those days. You got to Google it. And that's what I looked like in elementary school. But, it's such a shame, too, because third grade for me was 1995 to 1996. And that is just such a peak time in the 90s. What a great time for fashion, for pop culture. All of the older, cool high school kids probably had such amazing wardrobes, and I was wearing like Winnie the Pooh t-shirts that were 3 sizes too big for me, and like Tommy Hilfiger jeans. In fourth grade, I wore a black Calvin Klein shirt, and I had kind of like this grown out bob. It was actually very chic if it were on somebody who wasn't an awkward child. Very 1996 for sure. And I had glasses. Fifth grade, 1997, could not be more 1997. I wore a Union Bay sweater with a single stripe across the front. You guys remember that? And the little Union Bay logo. And the stripe was neon green. We loved neon green. Something about 1997 and neon green. It really was a moment. But my favorite is sixth grade. Favorite of all elementary school photos. Sixth grade, fall 1998. I picked the most 1998 thing that has ever existed. I wore a cloud printed t-shirt that said Angel on the front and this chunky beaded necklace that I probably bought from Claire's and felt really cool in. As not cute as I maybe was because I was a child, the outfits, I must say, are such perfect snapshots of the time. And, if I did anything right, it is that I nailed a lot of those tween fashion trends, especially of the late 90s. I'm sure all of my relatives were very impressed when they opened my mom's annual Christmas card / newsletter and found their little photo of me wearing the latest hot looks from JCPenney's junior department. But we really had to put effort into our little outfits because the outfit was all we had to stand out in that photo. That was all we had to try to make that photo memorable. We never looked good because our pictures were taken after gym class or recess inevitably every single time. It was always really hot. The odds were stacked against us, so at least we could try to put on a good outfit. I mean, first of all, these poor photographers were so rushed. They had an entire school of kids to take pictures of over the course of one single school day. I think we all had our pictures taken on the same day. So there was no time to perfect your pose. There was no time to make sure you had your angle right. You were lucky if you had some time to swipe on some shimmery lip smackers while you waited in line with your friend. You couldn't see what it looked like because you had no mirror, but you had to make do with what you had. And then you'd get to the front of the line. A photographer would take you and sit you down on the little stool and start turning you sideways every which way to try to find, the right angle. And they're shining these blinding lights into your face and you're kind of staring off into space trying to figure out what you're looking at. All you see is spots everywhere. You can't see a thing. And then they tell you to look somewhere to smile and you're like, where am I looking? All I see are spots. I feel like I'm looking into the surface of the sun, sir. And then they'd snap like 3 pictures so fast you didn't even have a chance to think about your smile or like what you were doing with your face. And then that was it. You were done. You were shoved off the little stool, shuffled down the hall onto the next kid, and you had to go back to math. I mean, it's no wonder that they were always a disaster. Like, if it wasn't bad enough that I had big goofy glasses and bad hair all through elementary school and horrible braces that took up half the photo in middle school, like all you saw was like, how did they make sure there wasn't a glare on my glasses and my braces? It's a miracle, but let me tell you, those braces really stole the show in the middle school photos. But half of my photos, I'm kind of half smiling, half grimacing at the camera because I was just focusing on, sweating under the lights and not being blinded by them, and also trying to listen to the photographer and the photographer's assistant. There's a line of kids standing behind you watching you get your photo taken. I mean, it was not good. One eye's half closed. The infamous wood chips in the hair picture also happened to have a really great facial expression. I look completely surprised or really excited about something. I'm like, eyebrows up, wide eyes, huge smile. I have this crazy grin on my face with my no teeth. I was really trying to show them off. It was like somebody held an ice cream cone up behind the camera and I was just pumped with my wild hair. I don't really know what I could have been so excited about or surprised by, but that's the facial expression my parents were stuck with for the entirety of the 1993 to 1994 school year. And the pictures were always super close up too. Not like our fancy senior pictures where we had a variety of poses and angles, maybe a full body shot or a waist up shot. No, regular school pictures were just our face and a tiny bit of the top of our torso, so you could just see the top of our shirt with that basic blue-gray photo background. Unless you were really, really lucky and your parents agreed to pay extra for the fancy backgrounds, which mine never did. They were like, this is expensive enough, and they always turn out bad. We're not shelling out extra for a fancy background. But I remember looking through the little brochure that they would give you to pick out the package for your photos and the potential backgrounds and being so envious of the kids who got the bright, colorful backgrounds for their school pictures. The photographers who did our photos had a few different backgrounds that you could choose from. They had the classic early 90s one that kind of looks like neon lights crossing in every which way. The one that kind of looks like the carpeting at an arcade from the early 90s or like a roller skating rink. Maybe a couple of other pattern ones, but the ones that I really liked, the ones that I thought were coolest were solid color backgrounds that were just a really bright color. So it kind of looked like the basic one, but it was bright blue or bright purple or bright pink or whatever, like almost neon level bright colors. I did have a pink background once. I think it was sophomore year of high school, and I don't know what happened there, but I would be willing to bet that they just maybe changed the the policies or the way that they did it and didn't charge extra for the colorful backgrounds anymore, because I can't imagine another reason why my parents agreed that time, but no other year to let me have this colorful background. And I must add, this was pre-digital age, okay? So when I say a different background, I don't mean that they just changed the color in editing, after on a computer. They actually had to haul around all of these different backgrounds and then switch them out when kids needed different backgrounds for their photos, like physical backdrop that they had to set up. So having a fancy background for your school picture was a very big deal, as you can imagine. Not to mention, if you were the one friend that had the cool background, your little wallet-sized photo would really stand out amongst the sea of wallet-sized photos that we had hanging up in, your little cubby or your little locker, wherever your friends hung all of their wallet-sized school pictures that you would trade. I have so many wallet-sized pictures of my friends from the years. We were obsessed with trading school pictures with each other when I was in, especially elementary school. I don't know how long it actually took to get the photos back, but in my little child mind, it was an actual eternity. It felt like it took so long. And I do think that we got proofs at some point so that we could see what the photos looked like, but even that took a while. And I mean, yeah, this was the film age. Again, this was not the digital age. They could not show us the picture right after they took it. So you'd get your little picture taken, and then you would just wait for weeks until one day a giant pack, they would come in this giant white envelope of a bunch of different sizes of your little school picture would show up. Obviously, you needed the big ones for grandma and grandpa and your parents, but the wallets were the only ones that I cared about as a kid. My friends and I would all write our little inside jokes on the backs of them and write little messages to each other and then trade with everybody. And it was really important that you wrote out a wallet size photo for every single friend. If anybody got left out, I mean, that could cause a huge issue in the friend group. But really, if we're being honest, all of this commotion over trading pictures with all of our little friends was just an excuse to try to get what we really wanted, which were the boys' school photos, especially later in elementary school and into middle school. If you had a wallet-sized school picture from your crush in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, your life was made. I mean, if he gave you his picture, you were practically married. You were definitely on track to get a little note passed to you from one of his friends from him that says like, will you go out with me, yes or no? And you check a box. I mean, this was a really big deal. This is actually so embarrassing, but I can actually still picture very clearly in my mind what a couple of the boys that I liked in 6th and 7th grade, what their school pictures looked like. Like I can visualize the picture in my mind to this day. Granted, they all pretty much looked the same. All the boys in my elementary school and middle school, they looked pretty much the same. They had the boy band butt crack haircut, the kind of bowl cut parted down the middle, like Devon Sawa or JTT. That was a pretty standard haircut, except they looked, really bad. They were 12-year-old boys and not actually members of boy bands. And then they all wore a plain t-shirt with a button-down plaid shirt worn open over it. Every single one. And not that you can see it in the photo, but there is almost a 100% chance that they're all wearing khaki cargo shorts on the bottom with that outfit and like gym sneakers. Every single one of them. I mean, that is 1999 in a nutshell, in my mind, really. But once we got to high school, trading school pictures definitely became less of a thing, I would hope. I mean, we had other things, I guess, to do to entertain ourselves. I don't really remember ever giving anybody my school picture, and I don't remember it being a big deal to have your school picture taken. I guess it was just more for the yearbook and your parents. That is until it was time for all of us to get our senior pictures taken. And if we thought that regular school picture day was important, we had no idea the importance of senior pictures. I feel like this wasn't the case everywhere. I've talked to some people who are kind of baffled by this because their schools did not treat it this way. But at my school, senior pictures were a whole ordeal, you guys. It was a production. It was such a big deal. We all had them taken off-site at actual photo studios. So they weren't taken at the school. These were much more controlled situations. You didn't have to wait until the middle of the school day. We all went to one of the same, maybe 2 or 3 photographers in the area. And it was basically a photo shoot, like a multiple outfit, hours long photo shoot. One place, which is where I went, did this ambassador program thing, which I don't really remember the details of, but basically it meant that you got more stuff with your senior pictures. I think you got to have more outfits, more poses. Your photo shoot was longer and probably a discount, I would imagine. And I'm pretty sure that they gave us like coupons or discount something to give to other people. And that was what we got in exchange. It was like we got more stuff in exchange for advertising for them. Obviously, I did this because I was really all in on the senior pictures thing. And I literally think I had as many pictures taken on my senior picture photo shoot day as I did on my actual wedding day. There were so many outfits, so many backgrounds, so many pictures. I remember the photos were taken in the winter because I guess they needed time to edit and then get them ready and everything. And I think the ambassadors had theirs taken first so that we could hand out the little discount card thingies. So my mom and I loaded up her car on this gross gray, like slushy winter day with basically half of my closet, including my giant ball gown prom dress. I mean, this thing was massive. We shoved that in the car. I'm sure a bunch of props, people had their sports equipment, their graduation hats. I didn't have mine yet, so I don't have one with the tassel, but all the things. And went to the studio for my little senior picture photo shoot. You guys, my senior pictures are next level. And the funniest thing to me is you can tell I took this whole thing so seriously, and it is absolutely hilarious. In one of them, I am literally wearing a straw cowboy hat on my head, and I am smoldering at the camera with this serious look on my face like I am on freaking America's Next Top Model. Like I was just waiting for Tyra to jump out of the corner and hand me a modeling contract. I was very committed. They are actually all on TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and Instagram if you ever need a little laugh. I've made them readily available for everyone else's entertainment. And because a solid 75% of my graduating class all went to the same place, we all have essentially the same exact set of photos. I will say though that I don't have too many of the super cliche senior picture poses. I don't have any railroad tracks, no leaning against a barn door, although there were a lot of those in my school. I did do the classic pose leaning up against that weird white pillar that we all had for some reason. And I did do the one where I was lying on my stomach and my bare feet were kicked up behind me. So many bare feet in those days in senior pictures. We really liked showing off our feet, I guess. We also loved a photo posing by some sort of body of water in the grass barefoot. A lot of barefoot, a lot of variations on the exact same photos, really. Even though we all had the same pictures, and even though there were, hundreds of them to choose from, we painstakingly went through all of the proofs. We marked our little favorites. We narrowed it down to a couple different options to get for our wallet sizes because we had to trade those with all of our classmates. Most of us girls, especially the ones who did this little ambassador thing, were really extra, and we got 4 poses for our wallet sizes, and we all traded all of them with each other. So you gave all 4 to all of your friends. Imagine how many prints we got of these pictures and what exactly we thought that we were going to do with all of those little wallet-sized pictures of our friends wearing sports team uniforms and their prom dresses and whatever random cute little outfits they picked out from Abercrombie and Fitch or American Eagle. Like, I don't know what we thought we were going to do with all of them. But once we had picked out all of the photos for our wallet sizes and our parents picked out the ones that they wanted, for the fireplace mantle and for grandma, we had to make the most difficult decision, which was choosing the one that would go in the yearbook. Most of us did some variation on the classic kind of head tilted to the side, smiling pose. Some people went a little rogue. I have kind of the classic pose, but I'm literally wearing a flower in my hair and a white strapless beach dress, essentially. I have a flower in my hair and I'm wearing a beach sundress. Like, I really thought that I was living the beach life dream, just Delulu as can be. Living in Wisconsin, absolutely nowhere remotely near any ocean whatsoever. And no surprise here, since I love to keep everything. Not only do I have all 4 years of my high school yearbooks, but I actually have a huge stack of senior pictures, the little wallet sizes from a bunch of my friends from high school. Most of them are probably my own classmates, so class of 2005, and the class above me, which was class of 2004. But there are a handful of others in there. There's some 2002, 2003 graduates in the pile. I'm actually pretty sure it's almost every senior picture that I ever got from a friend in high school. They're all there in that little stack. So if I went to high school with you, there's a very, very good chance that I still have your senior pictures with whatever little messages you wrote on the back of them way back, 20 years ago. And with that, and to celebrate the brief moments in time when my high school friends and I were basically supermodels, I am going to finish this episode with my list of the top 6 senior picture poses at my high school in 2005. And I'm doing 6 instead of 5 because number 1 is a very special one, which I'll get to. Number 6 is the car guy pose. There were a lot of these in my high school. And I say car guy, not car person, because it was always the guys who did this. I mean, listen, this was the 2000s, okay? If you had a cool car and you were a dude in rural Wisconsin, there was like a 98% chance that you were going to be leaning against that car or standing in front of it or maybe sitting on the hood of that car in your senior photo. And it's funny because rural Wisconsin, nobody had that cool of car. I've talked about this in previous episodes. There was not a single luxury car in the parking lot of my high school. So some of the cars that are featured in these senior pictures are really funny because it just shows what we thought was cool and like luxurious or just really exciting to have at the time, which is just kind of adorable when you think about it now. Number 5, the good old classic, the sports equipment. This was equal opportunity. Guys, girls, everybody had this. And this ranged from football players to dancers, everything in between. We all had some sort of picture featuring either a sports jersey or sports equipment or both. Some of my favorites, one of my friends, guy friends from high school, he has this picture. He's in his football jersey and he's holding a football and he has the most serious look on his face and it just doesn't even look like this person. It's so funny how earnest we were about these photos. Mine was dance. I did track and dance, but I have a set of pictures taken in my point shoes. You guys, it's bad. I didn't get any of those printed because oh man, but there were some good ones. There were some good sports equipment ones in the yearbook even. Some of them made the yearbook. Number 4 is the sitting in your prom dress. I went to high school in the mid-2000s when the trend for prom dresses was bigger the better. We all did the big ball gown prom dresses that were just absolutely massive Cinderella skirts with like a beaded bodice. And they looked like little cupcakes sitting on the floor. I mean, they would stand on their own. They were so large. So there was this trend in my high school, especially the studio where I went, where they would take your photo from above and you would just be kind of sitting in the middle of your prom dress, like looking up. And it kind of looked like you were just sitting on a pile of poof. Remember those Barbie cakes that were popular briefly, where the cake was kind of the skirt and then you'd stick a Barbie doll torso in it? We looked like that if you've ever seen one of those cakes. And we all got this photo taken. Every single one of us. Number 3 is the good old classic tree lean. This could also be the barn door lean or a random wall outside lean, but this is just where you kind of lean backwards on a tree and try to look really casual. Maybe you put your hands in your pockets or maybe you gaze off to the side like you're in a Laguna Beach promo photo shoot from 2004. We all had some variation of this pose. I did not lean on a tree or a barn door. However, I did lean against a fake stucco wall inside the photo studio that was colored like a bright aqua color that perfectly matched an aqua colored shirt that I was wearing in the photo. Number 2, of course, is the railroad tracks. But specifically in my school, a lot of people did the fingers and the belt loops on the railroad tracks. And for some reason, the railroad tracks pictures were almost always sepia toned. I don't know if somewhere there was a meeting of all the senior picture photographers in America, or the senior picture photographers of the upper Midwest, and they were like, here's an idea. Have them stand on railroad tracks, have them put their thumbs in their belt loops and kind of look off to the side, and then tint it sepia so it kind of looks like one of those old-timey photos you get taken on a boardwalk or at the Wisconsin Dells. But let me tell you, everyone did this. It was very popular and still to this day comes to mind when I think of senior pictures from this era. And then number 1, this is the special one, is the wet look. I am fairly certain that this was pretty specific to my area because this was the specialty of the photo studio where I went to get my senior pictures taken along with 3/4 of my graduating class. I'm sure there were others somewhere who also did this, but in my area, every single girl who went to this one particular studio did the wet look. So this was at the very end of your photo session. You would put on an all black outfit and then you would go in the bathroom and literally dunk your head in the sink. So it was dripping wet. You had dripping wet hair. And then they would take all these really kind of close up artsy photos of you with your hair, your wet hair, like all in your face. They were always black and white. I mean, the whole thing looked very much like Girl from the Ring crawling out of the well. I mean, we thought these were the hottest photos ever. Sometimes they would make them black and white, and then I remember one of my friends has really bright ice blue eyes, and her wet look photo was black and white with just her eyes colorful, so you could see these like shocking. It looked like a thriller movie poster from 2004, very on brand for the time. But now, man, I look at them, I'm like, what exactly were we doing here? I'm actually shocked that I didn't choose a wet look photo as one of my wallet sizes, but my mom did order a wet look photo to put in a little frame in our family room. And as you may have guessed, it is still there to this day. So when I go home to visit my mom, I get to see myself with my wet hair all draped in my face in 2005. I do have to say this was really difficult to narrow down to just 5 poses because, as you can imagine, with so many of us using the same photographer, there were many poses that made a lot of appearances across different people's pictures at my high school. I'm also so curious how other people's schools handled senior pictures and if it's still a thing today, because I never hear anybody talk about it. But when I was in high school, it was such a huge deal. So I'm really curious about that. I hope you all enjoyed this episode. If you did enjoy it, I would so appreciate it if you would share it with a friend who might also enjoy it. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode, and I will be back next week. Bye!